Hey, welcome back to Auset Gypsy, the podcast show. We are in episode 2 already. Wow, has a week gone by that quick?
Wow, yeah.
Actually, we're doing a two-parter. And, for new beginnings, we figured we'd have familiar guests on and some new up-and-coming. But, so, Rev B, has anything interesting gone on since we last chatted?
Let me see. In the last 5 minutes, we've watched a couple of YouTube videos to try to figure out our Mercury retrograde dilemma on how to get our guests to get onto our new technology streaming tool here.
Yeah, well, this has been certainly a learning experience for us as well too. But you can tune into episode 1 to hear all about our dilemmas. But we persevere and we overcome. And you know what? Even if we have to do it old school, we will just do it old school.
Because old school seems to work. Old school seems to work.
So, this is New Beginnings Part 2. And I think it's fitting with New Beginnings, and it's the end of October, and, it's traditionally the Witch's New Year. And it's a new beginnings in lots of spiritual ways and lots of physical ways. And this new beginning for this podcast show does seem to be off to a funny start. Forgive us. We're going to get into the rhythm of this. We want to take you, the listener, on the journey with us as if you're actually here in the room with us. So if you were in the room with us, you'd probably be a little baffled and frustrated at the lack of ease of podcast. And, what can I say? I'm a better tarot card reader than... a technological IT person.
Yeah, we may have to practice this a couple times to get this thing going, but that's okay. We'll figure it in.
We know you love us, and we know that you'll stick with us, and we'll muddle through together. So Halloween is on Thursday,
right?
And any special stories from Halloween for you yet? Like not things that are coming up, but like, do you have any memories you can recall from any Halloweens that stick out for the good, the bad, or the different?
Well, let's see. A couple of years ago, we had so in the back of my property, we set it up to be the haunted forest, and we had quite a good showing. We put ghosts and goblins and zombies and all sorts of stuff going on. Had a couple of glasses of wine. We all had a good time. Apparently, I had a really good time. A couple of falls in the forest. The next day, I'm thinking, wow, my knee really hurts. Couldn't really understand why it hurt as much as I did. Apparently, I had a broken bone.
Ooh,
didn't realize it. I did.
Damn bones, crazy bones.
Right. So I had probably a better time than I probably should have. But, things happen.
I know. My interesting thing, I wish I could say it was like mystical or magical. It's always some sort of run-in with somebody dressed up like Michael Myers.
Really?
That's what it always is. Yeah. Because, out of all the spooky movie monsters, I would say that to me, he's probably the most, spooky, and except for that new movie that came out last year. I don't know what that was. Look, I love Jamie Lee Curtis, and I love the old Halloween movie. I don't know what I saw last year. I went to go see it with one of my best friends, Dan Adala, and he loved it. I hated it. We were like the two old men in the box at the Muppet Show, disagreeing on how we felt that movie was. But I always have some creepy run-in with somebody dressed up like Michael Myers. on trains, in doorways, in fields. You know, when I was a reader at Universal Studios and we did Halloween Horror Nights, well, they still do it. I mean, you know, it's phenomenal. The first year I was there, I couldn't figure out how to get from Islands of Adventure backstage to Universal. And I went in behind the set, you know, between the parks, and I misjudged where I was supposed to come out into Universal Studios to find the tent where we were doing readings. And I ended up on the midway where it was Amityville. Back then, it was the Jaws ride. Now it's Harry Potter, you know. But all I could see through the fog, the really dense fog, was midway lights, and it was dead quiet. And a couple of feet ahead of me, I saw a techie. And I was like, oh, all right, this guy is going to tell me where I need to go because I can see nothing but smoke. You know, they were pumping the fog machine before they opened up the park. And I'm running behind him going, excuse me, hey, excuse me. And as soon as this guy turns around, the music kicked in. It was the Halloween theme. And this guy was dressed up like Michael Myers. If you ever wanted to see a guy scream like a 6-year-old girl and go weak in the knees, that was the moment to be there. So that's one of my many run-ins with Michael Myers.
I remember when my kids were really young, and we had gone. There was a place up in the Poconos. It was a very old area of the town, and the people up in, it was probably like 3 or 4 blocks long. They would basically work together and go all out. So like all the houses were full of lights, and that people would dress up in costumes. I mean, it was nothing like you can imagine. I mean, and for a little tiny town, it was great. So I would always take the kids there to go trick or treating. And this was when, I mean, you all know my oldest son, John. So John was probably maybe 7 years old. And we were going to one of the houses, and there was a guy standing there, and he looked like a werewolf. Now, I knew it was not a statue. He had no idea. So I thought, okay, well, you know, let's go, you know, past him. I know this guy's going to jump as soon as we pass him. So I figured, okay, I'd like to see it, but I don't want to go too close because I know he's going to scare him. And so we walking past, and he never moved, just stayed there in his full, you know, werewolf look. And he goes up, and so my 3 kids go up, and my little one was real. Let's see, so if he was 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So my little one's only 2, so I've got him in the stroller, and he knocks on the door, trick or treat, comes back out, goes past. So John stops. He's looking at the werewolf. This werewolf is not moving. John is enthralled by the werewolf. He's touching.
Oh, he's a braver man than I am.
He's like, wow, he's really cool. Guy's not moving. I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe he's not going to move. Okay, well, that's cool.
This guy did not have a ticklish bone in his body,
nothing. Not doing anything. He's like, Mom, he's really, really cool. And he's looking. He's like, wow. He's looking right at him. The werewolf looks down and goes, boo.
That's just boo.
Boo. Just a boo. John drops his candy and runs full speed. Ah! Like Home Alone. Ah! When I tell you, but he kept running and didn't stop. Block 1, block 2. I'm going, John, come back. I've got 2 little kids with me. I'm trying to drag them. So thank goodness I had somebody with me. I'm like, take my other kids. I'm running after this poor. I never thought he can run so fast. Running. I'm like, you can stop. And he just, woo! Kept on going.
And this is when John started track. He won many
awards.
Oh my
goodness.
Then, right?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I finally caught up to him as I'm, and he finally stopped. He's like, I'm like, what's the matter? He's like, it's alive.
It's alive. You know, but there's the thing. There's a lot of magic in small words. There's a lot of magic in the word boo.
Oh, it was fabulous.
He didn't have to come out and scream it. He
No.
just said boo.
Fabulous.
But, you know, saying magical words, and you know, since it's the most magical time of year for us, you know, it brings that question of being magical people. Do you feel you are truly a uniquely magical person? That's kind of a deep question.
That's very deep. Yes, I do. Yes, I'm trying. What's the best way to answer that? Yeah, yes, I do. I think over time, as I've gotten older, I've come to recognize that that doesn't mean what I think it may mean to other people. You know what? Let me keep it on myself, because we're going to start getting people leaving messages. What do you mean by that? So for myself, it definitely doesn't mean the same thing as it did when I first started doing this. Um, you know, you look at you watch movies on TV, and especially for the young kids, when they're all in goth with their black nail polish and it's so cool. um
But do you think that's like an initiatory phase?
you know
You
what, I
know?
think so, because maybe I was, you know what, maybe I was a little bit like that, although what pushed me into this was more because I was the outcast, and because things were happening to me that I was not happy about, and seeing things and not being able to understand the things that were happening sort of pushed me into a place that I had to learn about it, because I didn't like what was happening around me. I didn't get very serious with all of this until I was much older. So I don't think I really had a time where I was very into the, oh, it's so cool, charmed. It really went from, oh, help me understand why I'm such a freak, to this stuff can be very dark, to now, I'm an adult, a parent of grown children. I have a career, and I practice this very seriously, and recognizing that I'm probably more of a freak than I was before. Um, it, it's it, it's it definitely causes me to look at things much differently. Problem solving is a lot different.
Well, the reason I ask, and especially, it's a good point that you bring up, like as you travel through maturity in life, magical, and we're all magical in different ways. There's certainly different ways we can be magical, but the you know when I do come across magical people, like charming magical people, I mean, really, like there's something just special about them. I get really excited. It's a kindred spiritship.
Hmm.
And the guest we're going to have on next is he's a young guy, and I I don't even know how I got turned on to him, but I've been following him ever since I found him, and this is truly one of these magical people. And it's always rare to really come across, and I'm thrilled and really excited that he's going to be on the show, because there's a million questions I'm dying to ask this guy. I love everything from his image to the way he's promoting himself. I mean, if you guys already follow Auset Gypsy, or if you're just getting to know me and who I am and stuff, yeah, I can go really heavy on image. I do have a lot of fun with it. I do have a big entertainer's background, so I'm certainly not going to let that go to waste. So it's rare to find there are people who are very spiritual and magical, and their image is not important, but that they're magical people. And then there are people who are just all image, and well, they're good entertainers. And then there's these few in the middle that we've come across that bridge this place. And this guy definitely has it. If you're listening now, I'm going to give you the opportunity to look up this really interesting up and coming. I can't even say up and coming. He's arrived. He's got his own gig going on. His name is Austin Shippey, Shippey. Go check out his website. You can still listen to the podcast as you're checking it out, or if you're listening to us pre-recorded, pause here and go look up Austin Shippey and go check out his social media or his website and stuff. See what he's got going on. You need to see what he's doing as well as listen to him. So we're going to be bringing him on and talking to him about how he does what he does, because he's this young guy with this totally old soul and does things in such an old school way. Hey, Austin, are you there?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Oh, bravo, bravo. Thanks for dealing with us in our old school way of interviewing tonight. But I'm hoping that this is one of many conversations and interviews to have with you. I don't know if you were listening, but we kind of already hyped you up and introduced you to our listeners. But
Oh, no, I missed that. What did you say?
Okay, I'll go back and say everything.
Rewind.
It was nothing but good stuff. I can tell you that. Now,
All right.
just a little advice, like, a little disclaimer up to the audience. On our previous shows, some of the guests we have on, we know personally. But Austin is someone I don't know, but really admire and I'm really excited to have on. So, Austin, you are here. I'm James, aka Auset Gypsy, and my co-host is Reverend Bea.
Hi, how you doing?
Nice to meet you too. Nice to meet you.
So James is like all excited and he hyped you up totally, and I'm quite intrigued from what he's told me. So so we have your we have an iPad set up here. Sorry, podcast peeps, because you can't see this, but we did ask everyone to check out your website, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, of course, and get some information on you, and I have to say, what strikes me is you're quite old school for being not as old as I am.
Oh yeah. Very old school. In fact, I was kind of happy that things were kind of going wrong, because it seems like every time I'm on a podcast, whatever technology we're using, it always glitches out. There's always a problem.
So, all right.
I use old technology for everything. I trust in old things that have been around for a long time. I've been typing everything with a typewriter this last few months.
Right on. Well, you're a better man than I am. Austin, I'm so excited to have you on here. I have so many questions for you. Now, I don't want to sound like some weird stalker or like groupie, but I love everything that I see that you put on social media, because you have done something that very few can accomplish, which is really match your experience with your image. And I just explained to the audience that, Auset Gypsy is a very heavily image conscious thing, because I have an entertainment background and I love playing with image. It's a lot of fun. But like, when I see what you put here, I have not seen anything like this since seeing pictures of like the Sanders, which we're going to go with this in a second, and I think you're going to be a little excited. Since the 60s and 70s, and I'm looking at this like young guy, and I'm not seeing a typical 21st century 23-year-old guy. I'm seeing this old soul, like time traveled into the 21st century from another era that's gone by, to really remind the modern public of like this excellent era in witchcraft. You've done it. You've done a great job.
I want to remind people of that. Thank you. I mean, that's some of the greatest flattery I've heard.
Oh, you nailed it. You've done it, because it's not just image. Like, you've done it in a 21st century way as well. And we're right in the middle of kind of rebranding podcast shows. Reverend Bea and I, we were two hosts of a 4-host show previously, but a couple of months ago, Bea was in England and had
So I was privileged to be able to sit with Maxine Sanders, the wife of Alexander Sanders, and I sat with her for 4 hours, and we talked about Alexandrian witchcraft. And it's just kind of ironic, because now looking at everything that you've got here, I'm very intrigued and kind of curious, like what's driven you to go down such an old path.
Mhm. Well, I can talk about all of that.
Yeah, please go for it.
Please do. We're very interested.
I feel like it's more a case less of old soul. I don't know what kind of soul I have, but it's more a case of the story in the Bible of the angels kind of coming down and working with humans and the Nephilim and the power from the gods being stolen down, pulled down by man. I think that's what I've always tried to do. And people, a long time ago, people outside of our current culture, used things that we can't really understand now. They use it in a different way. In a sense, when you time travel back, everything's more the result and the outcome. So it's all a part of time traveling, bringing back the past when you need to. And witchcraft is full of that. All these little scraps of the past.
Well, to have caught on so young in your life, a direction and a path, and to be so confident in it, how rare is that? I'm so excited that you're this driven. I mean, really, tell us more about like your. I'm now you've got me tongue-tied, which is a rare thing to do. Where do you live? Like, where do people find you? Do you keep that quiet, or do you?
Right now I'm kind of enjoying the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
In Oregon, my home state. It's freezing outside right now, and blistering winds. And my little chihuahua is excited.
Okay.
She was scared of everything. Bad thing that she lives in a haunted house. She is scared of everything.
I know. Well, I see your Facebook posts about I'm Austin and I live in a haunted house. I love that because you have this.
I'm disgusted at this point.
You have this brilliant professionalism, like profound experience, absolute confidence, and you do the work. This is something that we talk about a lot. And, people can look the part. That's great. Image is fun. But do people actually do the work? It's one thing to just read about it and to be able to quote things, but to actually do the work. And you have proof because there's pictures and videos, and you're constantly sharing with the public all the time that you are living this.
Yeah.
You are not shy about it.
I've kind of worried before, like, regular employer.
Oh, wait, you're breaking up a little bit. We can't hear you.
Oh.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
better?
Perfect.
Okay, well, the same form as I act. I think I lost my train of conscience.
We were just talking about how you actually live what you do.
Oh.
You actually do the work. Like,
oh yeah. Well, I feel like I've just always had to. I kind of struck a chord with the new season of American Horror Story that they just released on Netflix, Apocalypse. Michael Langdon, I kind of struck a chord with it. It's like, I think every tribe, every village, every city, every people have always had their mystics. And I think I was just born into that. When you look at all the descriptions of mystics all across Western Europe, they all have these similar characteristics. And they're the people who are born partway on the spirit world, partway on earth. I think I was kind of born that way. Like, I fit a lot of the descriptions, and so I think I was just meant to be a priest or a mystic and figure out how to work.
well, for somebody who's
Everything and all those things.
well, you totally throw out the window that experience comes with age because you're 23 and you're really well experienced. I mean, I've read a lot of the things you've written and your points of view. It's, there's always this debate and conversation, especially now in the 21st century, related to how like things like American Horror Story. I've not seen much of it, but
I love it.
Things like American Horror Story and Harry Potter have made being witchy mainstream. Now, those were things that I've never read a Harry Potter book. I've never watched a Harry Potter movie. I've been on the rides at Universal Studios and I close my eyes when those giant spiders come out. Still haven't seen them. Been on that ride a million times. Still have not seen one of those spiders. I keep my eyes closed the whole time. So I never had any of that as an influence, but I know that it's a big influence on mainstream culture right now, which is exciting a lot of the populace, and it's very trendy to pretend to be a witch. Oh, yeah, I've seen Sabrina. I don't mind that. That was good. But you're beyond that at this point because you're not just pretending. You're actually doing this.
I've become it.
Yeah.
I've stepped into it. Fulfilled the role. That's something I'm really proud of. I've spent basically
Oops, we lost you again.
It seems like whenever I stand over here, it stops working.
Don't stand over there anymore.
Okay, walk over to the other side of the room.
Bravo.
I wonder which direction that is. That's south. Avoid the south.
Well, the south seems to be where your bars tend to be.
It's too much fire.
But what I'm saying is, you're not a Harry Potter witch wannabe. You're something else. You're way beyond any of that.
I don't want to hold myself up to a type of like a transcendence about this whole thing. I think it's just an aspect of culture. Witchcraft is an aspect of culture and magic, and people have always studied them. Tried to find the answers, tried to find how to operate the universe. And I think the reason I became an Alexandrian and why I was just born to step into this traditionalist witch role.
Well, you're doing an excellent job upholding the tradition too.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've tried to do the whole time, to the best of my ability. But I am creative, so.
That's apparent, and I'm really impressed by that. Yeah, but we need that.
And you're very creative too. You're making podcasts, and you have beautiful pictures of your wear.
Oh shucks! Thank you.
You're the real deal. Wow. I think I always think that witches and magicians, basically occultists, they make things appear out of nowhere when other people couldn't imagine it even happening.
Yeah.
We're those types of people. We're the real deal. We make things happen.
Well, you're certainly making things happen. I mean, but you've got the whole package. Like, you're smart. You know how to package yourself. You're a good-looking guy. It's part of the package. You know what you're talking about. I don't know. I'm just so blown away that it's so rare that I ever see anything that completely impresses me like this. And
well, thank you.
Well, thank you, because it's so important. What I was getting at before was, when I say this, I don't want it to sound negative. It's not negative, but you were born after there was a lot of conversation between what happened in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s with witchcraft, and then the 90s when things like Charmed and that movie The Craft came out and kind of turned it into like suburban mall girl, like teenage angst. And that was the era that I was not fond of. I didn't like that because I didn't grow up in that kind of environment. Folk magic and spiritual beliefs that I saw came from a really old-fashioned place, and it was nothing like what I saw in those TV shows or movies. When I saw clips of it, I didn't get it. It didn't resonate with me. It didn't make sense to me. I saw it as entertainment, as Hollywood as TV. But you were born in a time post that, when that was already on the scene. So to see someone at 23
I'm lucky to
capture,
I got to look at that era, and I got to look at the era before it and compare the two. I'm lucky.
Yeah, but you know what I find interesting, and I think to James's point, for your age group, I think even there's still that group that wants to be, they're not into the Charmed. I think we've kind of grown past that, but now it's the gothic kind of, it's cool to be a witch and wear a pentagram, but they have no idea. Right. It's more,
well, except for during the witch hunt.
Exactly. But it's more of a, it's a fashion statement, and, it's a clique. And there's no understanding behind it. But what I find interesting, and I'm actually looking at your one part where you've got Key of Solomon, where you're stepping into very deep, ceremonial magic and Goetia. I mean, there's that's very,
beautiful.
It's very beautiful. And I mean, that this is stuff that, I worked with, and, understand that, for those that are not interested in that type of occult magic, it's boring. I love it. I don't think it's boring, but I'm just saying historically, if you're really not an occultist that appreciates that, there's no way you're going to go down that. It's really for somebody who's much older, or they're coming, or they've lived that before, and that's why they're drawn to that, if that makes sense.
Well, that makes sense, but I also think people can find the Bible really boring. But if you are one of the people in the world that has read at least some of the Bible, and I haven't read through the whole thing, I find that boring. But I read through Bible's dark accomplices and figured out how those work. And I think you can read those books, and they're passed down through generation after generation. And it's remnants of very, very old magic before history was surviving in there, surviving in the Key of Solomon and these similar old books. Anyone can look at those books written by the wise men of the past and learn something. But it's very, very hard to penetrate exactly into the books. They're very hard to understand. But I think, like the Bible, you meditate on it, you read it over and over, and you learn to understand it, and gives you lessons you can take everywhere. And I think that's one of the most powerful forms of magic, transforming yourself.
Absolutely. But I mean, look at the words that you're choosing. I mean, that's I'm completely blown away.
Well, but to your point, you also have a level of, but you also have a level of understanding and appreciation of when you delve into that, let's say that history, that understanding, that what can be offered, because magic is very powerful, but when you tap into something that's as old and as rich as that, and you begin to practice it, exactly, and you get a chance to connect with everyone else that's connected to that. So when you use it, you get a chance to tap into that. Yeah. So, but the fact that you understand that, I'm going to go back to something you said, just being an old soul, and that having that innate understanding, that's being wise beyond your years.
You're an author, you do videos, you have this amazing, online presence. Do you speak publicly anywhere right now? Like, where can people find you?
Recently, it's just been kind of chaos whatever people offer me, and people usually at least offer me something every once in a while, like this podcast. I'm always grateful for it. But yeah, it's just been kind of unorganized right now, and I'm hoping I can eventually move into a phase where I'm more free in life. But right now, it has to kind of be chaos. But I enjoy it whenever I get the chance to talk about these things because they're my true passion. Just something that I probably will always have in my life, especially all the memories, bad and good. It can be dangerous. Magic can ruin your life, and it frequently has, and it hurts me. I have an ulcer, and I'm trying to heal it.
Wow.
So send me good energies for that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I was too hard on myself. You can get too much into magic, and it can be dangerous at times.
Right, and you have to remember that the different organs, our body is like a big temple, and all the organs are like little storehouses for different spiritual energies, and as well as the fluids and the fatty tissues and all the stuff that
And
goes
the
through
solar
it.
plexus absorbs a lot, so
And-
that's usually where we get it, right there in the solar plexus. So ulcers are not unusual. Speaking from one who has had a couple, so I totally understand it.
Yeah.
But you know, it's interesting because before we started this podcast today, actually James and I were talking about that, about how you know, living and walking on a magical path, and how not everyone understands that it's not I'm going to say it's not all, you know, unicorn shit and fairy, you know. Exactly. I'm not a unicorn fan. Let's put that out there. Fairies are not my thing. And it can be dangerous.
They terrify me. I don't want to make any pacts with fairies.
They can be nasty little buggers. But
They get their revenge.
you're right. But it can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. And unfortunately, I see that, you know, I've seen on more than one occasion people not taking it seriously, and the dabblers. And you know, there's a difference between dabbling versus taking it very seriously and learning, and reaching out, and you know, trying to you know, find mentors, and understanding, you know, things that you can do with it.
Well, it comes down to how strongly do you want things in your life, and what do you care to have in your life every day and carry around with you. And if you go through the experience of initiation and devoting yourself to a tradition, you get to carry that with you wherever you go. It changes your life like a baptism.
Right.
And so people who can do that can do other things. They can make it work.
Right.
No, all right.
So it has to be closed off because it is dangerous. There are a lot of people who, if they took on something that big, that's so life-changing, it could get them killed if they were in a dangerous place, or it's a big thing to bring someone onto a path less explored.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the path that you've chosen is a very dedicated, committed, rigorous one. That's where I was going with this a few moments ago, that these days you see people, regardless of age, they want the quick and the easy. They want to be a witch in 3 easy steps.
Mm-hmm.
You know, okay, but you're really putting yourself through the ringer with old school initiations that people today, one, are too lazy to do.
Yeah.
Two, too afraid to do.
Honest, yeah.
You know, we're looking at a picture of one of your shirts on your store page, and this was one of the pictures that really intrigued me about you a while ago that you put up. It's you, like, flanked by 2 candlesticks, holding an incense burner, and you're shirtless with all these marks, you know, all these different sigils on you. And I saw this and I thought, how did this, you know, like I said, don't take it the wrong way. I'm like,
it's a strange photo. Looking back on it, it's very strange, and strange to think that I don't know, that's me.
what?
Why? Just curious.
Because it's creepy.
Why is it
Everyone
creepy?
judges the witch. Everyone judges the witch. The witch is the one in the village that is on the outskirts next to the woods and wears black and talks to their animals too much.
You just hit Bee's
they're the people
favorite chord.
So you're obviously quite intuitive, because right before this podcast, I told James that when I get old and I'm done working, I was gonna live on the outskirts of town in a little cabin with my cauldron with body parts hanging off my ceiling, stirring the pot, and that's where I'm gonna. Exactly how you described it. That's going to be me. And when people, but I'll tell you what, I'll be the freak. But when people need something, they'll be knocking on my door.
Yeah. And that's the spirit.
That's
Right.
If you want to get things done, you go to the witch.
That's right.
That's what Christian Bea always says.
That's
When
it.
you want to get things done, you go and you get a candle and you light it and you make it happen.
Yeah.
And it's up to the people who are really, really deeper into it, and they were born with some sort of psychic sense, or they see things in a different way. We need those people to help guide the people who don't want to step onto that road, don't want to face the perils and the isolation that it can cause, and they just really want to be brave about it. So it's not for everyone, but for those who have the talent, they can plunge in.
You know what? You were brave to say that. You really were. I admired what you just said, that it's not for everyone, because we live in a society now where everybody has to get a gold star, and people only say that so that they're not ripped apart by the mob.
That little gold star sticker, it means so little.
Right. And it's really just an
it
empty...
It could mean a lot, though, if you handed it to a child. So it can be a powerful little gesture. It's like baptism. John the Baptist, he was just passing people through a river, and it suddenly changed the course of history. That's what spirituality can do. That's what magic can do. So it is a big responsibility, and it does change you.
Sasha Graham, before, when we had her on the first part of or an hour ago, or before this part, she said something that it kind of reminds me now of maybe where your age and what you're doing. She said that the youth of today, and I think this is where I think you're leading, that where our society is now with all of the shit that's happening, take your pick politically, how there's so much disrespect, between, people and the race, the racial tensions and everything that's happening, that we're looking now for some sort of redemption. And, what she was saying was, she's so in awe of, I'm going to say you as the collective, your group coming up, that's stepping up, even from a spiritual perspective. You're young, but you're not young. And you're the ones that are coming up with the voice to say this and fill in the blank has to stop, and are doing things that other groups,
Powerful.
It's very powerful, that other groups haven't done. They haven't been able to step up and say, you're the activists, you're the magicians, you're the ones that are going to institute the change that the other ones haven't done.
What's that? Say that again?
I think the problem is people don't work in teams anymore.
You're right.
You're right.
Cousins get you to do. Cousins appeals to people. I mean, there are all different sorts of people in the world, and not one of them is wrong in how they live. We'd rather some of them not, but
I'm with you.
Well, and you have a good sense of humor too. What are your next steps? Like, what's coming up on the horizon? I'm so curious. I mean, I've seen everything you've done, and I see what you do daily, but what's your next endeavor?
Well, I have another book on the way. I have a little stack of paper, typed it all up on my typewriter.
Excellent. And what's your book like?
Really, really exciting.
What's the book about? What inspired you?
It's witchcraft, pure witchcraft.
Okay.
Old-fashioned Sabbath.
Excellent.
And just explaining inspirations, dreams, just ideas throughout the day, and I just talk about them. All of these things are constantly rattling around in my brain. So that's basically what the book is going to be. And I'm going to be really proud. I'm sure it's going to be like a baby. And I'm going to try to do events to promote it after I get it out.
Well, I can't wait
It'll be fun. That's my biggest hope. And I don't know, people like what I do, and I'm really grateful that I have people who love it, and it inspires them and empowers them. And there are a lot of people, and yet everyone who are just so keyed into the spirit of witchcraft. It's just the real continuum of it. The spirit of the actuality, being able to get close and touch it.
Well, and you're helping do that with them. You know, I would definitely say you've bridged that gap.
I think what's really important, and at least, you know, for me, I'm if you haven't picked it up, I'm very old school. And it's I like the fact that you can bring to your generation I'm using quotes, hand quotes, you can't see me, the coolness of being old school and bringing back the old school magic, like bringing back that occultism, bringing back ceremonial magic, you know, bringing back Golden Dawn, bringing back, you know, because all of the other stuff that came after, that was the foundation, and you know,
and it gets more and more watered down.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
Well, because what
the decade, it's just weak tea.
Well, it seems that what ended up happening with it was that it did go mainstream. And when I don't know if witchcraft and occultism needs to be absolutely mainstream, because the mainstream can't handle all of it. It's like, what if quantum physics and algebra went mainstream? We would have kind of it wouldn't be the same. That's for a very specific minded group of people who understand that. And with the mainstream, or the what's the word for it when they redo a neighborhood? The gentrification of witchcraft came down to, I have a bundle of sage and a crystal around my neck, I'm a witch. And like then there's Austin Shippey putting on t-shirts, him completely naked with athames, onks,
fabulous,
and reminding people where the real foundation and origins of that is, really putting it right in your face.
That's Alexandrian witchcraft.
That's fantastic.
I support people who do what they want spiritually and are free in what they do spiritually. It's just, I want people to be aware of the tropes and maybe some things that they shouldn't be falling prey to, gimmicks, things that don't really matter.
Yeah.
And respect your elders, because everything that you can find on YouTube, every show that's come out in the last half a century, all of it to Jared Gardner and Alex and Maxine Sanders and their work. It all traces back. So.
Absolutely.
And then for that, extract in meetings for the group.
Wait, we're losing you again. You're breaking up.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
Retrograde.
Retrograde's coming. We know. We're all victims of it tonight. We hold no judgment towards you. But, you know, unfortunately, we do have to wrap up this portion of the show, and I hate to do it, but Austin, I hope that we can keep in touch.
Can we get you on again?
And I would love...
Yes, I would love to.
Please.
Yeah, and I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, don't be shy.
I'm
Absolutely.
excited. I will be glad to do it whenever.
Great.
Happy Halloween.
Oh, happy
Happy
Halloween
Halloween.
to you too. And we will definitely be in touch with you again, and we'll put together something really good for the listeners, and we'll come up with a great show. Not I love spontaneous, so to me this was fantastic. I have a million more questions
Yeah,
for you.
so do I. And I have to say, thank you, absolutely. Thank you for and I understand that you're practicing the way you are because inherently it feels right to you. But from my perspective, I appreciate you. I appreciate the way you're practicing because as we've said, this isn't the old ways are not the old ways anymore, and it's good to see someone walking in that way. I'd like to say I'm going to live forever. Well, I will, but just not in this form. But it's hopeful. One of the last things when I met with Maxine, one of the questions I asked her was, how does she see magic once she passes? She's up there in age, and she said that she doesn't see it continuing in the way that it is now. It was when she practiced, and I was mortified. I'm like, how can you say that? And she said, things change. Look at the world. It's not the same way it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I cannot wait to get and send her a Facebook message and say, ha ha, I found someone who's going to practice it in the old way. So,
I've met Maxine. She's lovely. She's amazing and very powerful.
Yes.
Well,
absolutely.
Austin, your generation certainly needs you. Later generations certainly need you. And generations that haven't even been born yet will need you. So you keep up all the great work. I'm going to keep an eye on your career very closely. I'm very excited. I'm a big fan. Love your work and find it all very inspiring. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and being on the show. And we will definitely have you back again really soon. So
all right.
I can't.
Is there any time to answer a little bit of a question for people on Instagram?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Anytime.
Go for it now. Do you have do you have a question that you're being asked? And say who it is, and go ahead, answer it. We have 2 minutes for that.
Yeah. This is from, where is my Instagram? Hoka89. I hope they're not angry at me. Oh well, if they want me to, I can tag it in my story.
Okay.
But they were basically asking what tips would I give to a new witch, new on the path. And I want to say basically what I've been saying, it's not for everyone. There are easier ways to get things done. And if you agree to step your foot on an occult path, you're bound to face suffering and purification. And it can make life very miserable. But how badly do you want it? How badly do you want what you can gain from mastering such a system? It takes knowing how to pray and worship, study, learn about humans, learn about all time, develop your psychic senses. And once you do that, your mind is expanded. And that is one of the most powerful aspects of the occult magic and initiatory witchcraft, is that it expands your mind. It awakens you. They always say people don't use their whole brains. Through spirituality, you can.
Well
so it's
put.
for some people, it's not for others.
Well put. Well, Austin, we look forward to having you on again really soon. And picking up where we leave off with this conversation, you left me really impressed. And looking across the table here at Rev B, she's really impressed too.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
you
you
guys
for
are, very generous, and I'd be happy to be on the show anytime.
Well, we will arrange that behind the scenes. We're going to let you go now and wrap up our show because we have about 5 minutes to wrap up. And we will make sure that everybody is directed to your website and to your social media and can find you if they have questions. This show will also be available on Podbean and Spotify for future reference to look back on, so you can always listen to it again. Or if you want to send the link out to your followers who didn't get a chance to listen tonight, they can listen to it for ages and ages. But we're going to let you go now. Thank you so much. You keep being a credit to the whole entire... Oh, thank you so much. Well appreciated. And we will be in contact soon.
All right. Bye.
Good night,
Have a great
Austin.
evening. Bye.
You know, that gives me hope for future generations.
Absolutely.
Like maintaining the old school tradition. Someone had to do it, because here at the shop, I have the old school witchcraft books on a specific shelf. They don't move.
No.
And when I address people to them to show them the real, they don't want that.
No, as soon as I've had the same experience. As soon as, people open up the first page and there's a thee, a thou, or a word that has more than 7 syllables. Oh no, I can't do it.
Right.
It's too easy to go to the easy, as you said it, a candle and a piece of sage. And that does work. But, I think
there's something beautiful in simplicity,
yes,
for sure.
and
but that's not simplicity that I'm talking about. That's called faking it. That's called pretend. That's called, look, I have a sage. Look, I have a crystal. Now everyone thinks I'm a witch.
And understanding where did that come
playing.
from? There's a lot of history and
Right.
understanding behind that. And if you really want to understand all of that, the crystal is great, but do you know where the crystal came from? How was that crystal born?
Right.
What's the energy behind that crystal? Which crystal do you really want? What's the magic behind the sage? Do you know what element does that sage belong to? There's a lot of information you should be knowing before you burn that.
And we are here to answer all of those questions and more in further podcast shows. We thank all of you for listening. We're going to have to kind of wrap this all up. If you can tell, we've been hyped up on pumpkin spice lattes and iced coffees, which is always a fun treat here on the show.
It is.
But if you want to reach out to us and contact us, you can reach out to us through Auset Gypsy, which is AUSET GYPSY, like the old Stevie Nicks song, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then there's also the Auset Gypsy, the podcast show Facebook page, where you can leave us pictures, comments, questions, perplexities, anything.
And an occasional exorcism rite, which we have experienced in the past. And I'm just going to leave it at that until one of our other podcasts, and maybe we'll explain.
I love when we get exorcisms. It's really a fun exploration doing these shows, because we get to meet so many interesting people and see different points of view and have a few laughs and have a lot of fun. And we hope that you join us on this magic carpet ride. We podcast from Auset Gypsy Metaphysical Emporium in the historic downtown Easton, Pennsylvania, which is right on the convergence of 2 rivers, the Lehigh and the Delaware. Very powerful meeting place. We travel out a bit. I'm lost for words all of a sudden. It must be dinner time.
I'm eating a
trick or treat Reese cup.
A white Reese's peanut butter cup. Yum.
Yum. You can't go wrong with any kind of chocolate and peanut butter in my book, really. But we will be picking up these podcasts weekly from here on out. Most of them will be live. Some of them will be pre-recorded. You can always go back and listen. Please follow us on, again, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, and Podbean. We are here to please. We are here to serve. We are here for the duration. And we thank you for tuning in and listening. It's a journey and an experience for us too. Bea, do you have anything to wrap up before we go into closing here?
I think this was the beginning of a wonderful roller coaster ride.
I'd say too. And as we go into the new year with Halloween coming up on Thursday. We wish all of you a really, really happy Samhain. Happy Halloween. Happy Isaiah. Happy Samhain. And we hope that you get lots of tricks and especially more treats. And you can tell